Welcome to Cheaters Anonymous, where secrets don't stay buried and perfect lives unravel faster than you can say I do. This is a story about 4 people who built their lives on love and loyalty and friendship, only to burn it all down in a hill country cabin where one secret kiss ignited a wildfire of obsession, betrayal, and murder. This is Blood and Limestone. The September heat still shimmering over Austin's hill country when 2 black Range Rovers wound their way up the drive of Southwind Ranch Estates. It looked more like a movie set. Limestone cliffs, live oaks, cedar-scented breeze. If you drove past, you'd assume the people who lived there had it all. But you would be wrong. Rachel Foster stood on the cabin's porch in bare feet, a glass of sweet tea dangling from her manicured fingers. At 36, she wore success like silk. Her yoga-toned body, wrapped in breezy linen, moved with the kind of grace you can't fake. Behind her, the ranch house rose like a monument to Texas wealth. Limestone and cedar, floor-to-ceiling windows, curated art, curated life. From the outside, it looked like Rachel and her husband Jamie had it all. His hedge fund, her yoga empire, 2 Range Rovers, and designer boots lined up like soldiers in the mudroom. But lately, their life, their love, it felt like one of those curated rooms, picture perfect, but empty. She called out as their longtime friends pulled up, "You finally made it. I was about to send a search party." Marcus and Olivia Wright, well, they stepped out of their SUV like they belonged there, and in some ways they did. 15 years of friendship, college memories, insider jokes, holiday cards, and a million remember whens. Jamie followed Rachel onto the porch, all Texas charm in a quarter-sized zip cashmere sweater and custom boots. He was watching her, the way she laughed, the way her fingers lingered a little too long on Marcus's arm. That was Jamie, always watching, always calculating. Inside, the house was firelit, and soft jazz was playing, just enough, and wine to let everyone pretend they were still 20-something and carefree. Marcus talked about life at the hospital, Olivia about her gallery downtown. Jamie held court with stories of IPOs and startup acquisitions. And Rachel just floated between them, topping off glasses, dropping little bits of fire into the conversation like she didn't know what she was doing. But she did know. They all knew. Every laugh had an edge, every glance a history, every moment a ticking clock. Rachel was the one who suggested it. "Remember, truth or dare," she said. 3 words that should have stayed in college, really, but the 3rd bottle of wine had loosened the room. And suddenly they were all seated in a circle, like the old days in their West Campus apartment, and the bottle spun. The fire crackled, and secrets started to slip out like smoke. "What is your biggest regret?" Someone asked Olivia, and she hesitated, but then she did say, not kissing Marcus that night in Santa Fe. Well, Rachel's breath caught. Marcus just stared at the fire, and Jamie's glass cracked in his hand. Just a hairline, but enough to bleed. Because the thing about a shared history is that no one ever forgets what almost happened. Now, later that night, when the power went out and the storm rolled in, which started as a memory, became movement. In the dark, hands found skin that wasn't theirs. Mouths remembered kisses they never were supposed to taste. And 15 years of what-ifs burst wide open like a lightning strike through glass. They said it was the storm. Maybe the wine. The nostalgia. Well, in the end, they said it was a mistake. But it was the kind of mistake you don't come back from. The next morning, they dressed in silence. Perfect clothes, perfect makeup, and perfect lies. The damage was already done. The fracture had begun. And 3 months later, in that same cabin, someone would die. I don't know exactly when it shifted, when the storm stopped being an accident and started becoming a choice. But I do know what came next. Obsession. 2 weeks after the cabin weekend, autumn pressed in on Austin like guilt trying to seep in through the cracks. The heat hadn't broken yet. It clung to the air like regret. But underneath the familiar routine of Pilates and fundraisers and couples dinners, everything was different. Marcus and Rachel weren't just thinking about each other. They were orbiting. Rachel started waking up in cold sweats, and it wasn't from nightmares. It was from the need. The memory of Marcus's hands on her skin, it wouldn't fade. She'd walk into her yoga studio, smiling and adjusting someone's downward dog, while her body still buzzed with the phantom imprint of him. She renamed him M in her phone, just the one letter. She somehow thought that was safer, even though it was not. And across town, Marcus Wright, the brilliant, composed surgeon with the picture-perfect marriage, well, he was losing it. He still saved lives by day, still walked the halls of Delton Medical with flawless calm. But every moment between surgeries, every second he wasn't cutting into someone else's body, he was thinking about Rachel, texting her things like, "I can't stop," "Remember the fireplace," "What if this isn't over?" He'd delete and retype everything. It was like he was performing emotional surgery with trembling hands. But the desire kept bleeding through. He was unraveling, and he knew it. Jamie, the husband, the strategist, the shark, noticed the change. I mean, of course he did. He always noticed everything. Rachel's new silences, the way she laughed way too hard at absolutely nothing, the sudden board meetings, the 7 a.m. yoga classes that she insisted she could not miss. Her hands shook when Marcus's name even came up. It was electricity. And Jamie watched, and he listened, and then he started to track. I mean, it started small. A new home security system, a few cameras, some new software that pinged when her car left the studio. And then it escalated. Bank statements, phone records, GPS tracking. His hedge fund background made him a master of data, and now he just applied it to his wife. Now, meanwhile, Olivia, sweet and polished Olivia, played her part like a professional actress, the perfect wife, the understanding friend. But inside, she was watching it all burn, and she liked the heat. She started inviting Jamie to art consultations a little more often. She'd stop by his office late and laugh a little too hard at his dry jokes, leaving little reminders of herself in his space, like a lipstick print on a wine glass or maybe some perfume in the air. This was not love. This was leverage, and she used it to slowly poison Jamie's mind. The observer. "She's been distant, hasn't she?" she would say, casually over cocktails. She'd say stuff like, "Marcus sure has been acting strange lately, too. I'm sure it's nothing." But it was everything. By the time the children's medical gala rolled around, the tension had become a physical presence. By the time the children's medical gala rolled around, the tension had become a physical presence, like a ghost hovering over their designer clothes and fake smiles. Rachel wore midnight blue, the color of drowning. Marcus looked like he wanted to tear through his tux and start screaming. And Jamie's whiskey glass cracked again in his hand, just like the wine glass had at the cabin. And Olivia? Well, she watched all of this with a curator's eye, cool, collected, and calculating. Later that night, when the text came through that said, "You looked beautiful tonight," Rachel replied without thinking, not to her husband, but to Marcus. And from that point on, it became dangerous. Marcus began showing up at Rachel's studio, claiming he was just nearby, pretending to need advice about stretching. He'd watch her in the mirrors, as if every pose was a seduction. And Rachel, she stopped trying to resist, and they met again and again. Room 1542 at the W Hotel became their hideaway. High above the city, away from the cameras, the kids, and all the expectations. Their clothes hit the floor like confessions. But passion quickly became panic, as it does in affairs. Marcus started to spiral, calling her too often, texting when she didn't respond fast enough, showing up outside her studio, at the grocery store, even along her jogging path. And he would say it was just coincidence. But Rachel could feel it. This was not love anymore. This was some kind of need, or maybe an ownership. And then the pregnancy test, 2 pink lines in a hotel bathroom. Rachel stared at it like it had bitten her. Her body now held something that might bind her forever to a man who was not her husband, and maybe not even the man she thought she wanted. And when they met again, she told him that she was pregnant. And he looked at her with something between awe and terror. And then he said the words that broke her last defense. He said, "Leave him. I don't even care if it's mine or not. I will raise it with you." But she hesitated, and he saw that. And just like that, his desperation turned into panic. Now, meanwhile, Jamie's surveillance reached new levels. Cameras in her studio, a tracker under her car, her phone buzzing at all hours with questions masked as concern. Well, where are you? Who are you with? When will you be home? And across town, Olivia sharpened her final blade. She told Jamie everything in whispers and half-truths, just enough to ignite his darkest fears. And then she turned around and showed Marcus something else entirely. Evidence of Jamie's surveillance, every single frame, every timestamp. The videos of him and Rachel. Stolen moments, private rendezvous, all caught on hidden cameras that Jamie had planted, laid out like trial exhibits. Olivia whispered, "You are not safe. Take her, protect the baby." Well, and Marcus, he believed her, because by then he was way far too gone not to. December rolled in like a funeral procession, cold, quiet, and unforgiving. Rachel had one hand on her belly and one on her steering wheel, winding up the cedar-lined drive to the Hill Country Cabin, the place where it all began, and where deep down she knew something was going to end. Inside, everything looked the same, the designer throws, all the framed memories, floor-to-ceiling windows facing a landscape that didn't really care who lived or died. Jamie was the next to arrive. He was alone, dressed sharp, carrying something heavy in the pocket of his coat. It wasn't flowers, it wasn't wine, it was something colder. Then Marcus pulled up. His car was still running when he got out. White-knuckled grip on a duffel bag that held more medical gear than personal effects. The man was a surgeon, even in war. And then last, Olivia. Always last. Always on time, though, looking like she stepped out of a noir film. Hair pinned, lipstick lethal. The cabin doors closed behind them, and the night began. At first, it was all theater. Polite dinner, raised glasses, talk of old times. but the tension, it was baked into every bite. Marcus staring at Rachel's untouched wine glass, Jamie watching everyone like a hawk, and Olivia playing conductor from her side of the table. Every word sharp, every glance calculated. At 10:47 p.m., the breakdown began. Rachel excused herself due to morning sickness. Very convenient. Olivia struck at 11:15. Her voice cut across the table like a scalpel. She was very blunt. She said, "Tell them, Marcus. Tell them how long it's been. Tell them about Rome, about Santa Fe, about the gallery opening you conveniently forgot to mention." And time stopped in that moment. Rachel just froze. Marcus blinked, and Jamie's hand curled around the stem of his wine glass like it was a weapon. "I have photographs," Olivia said. She stood up and said she has every touch, every text, 15 years of evidence, even in college journals, she told Rachel. The ones, she told Rachel, where Rachel had written about Marcus late at night. And then there was the gun. Jamie pulled it from his coat at this time. It was a Glock 19 he bought 6 weeks earlier. It was all legal, all registered, and it was loaded. He didn't point it at Rachel or Marcus. He pointed it at Olivia. And he told her she'd been behind this from the start, that she had set Jamie up. Well, Olivia just watched. He said she set him up. But Olivia just laughed. "Watched, Jamie? Come on, I orchestrated this." It was 11:47 p.m. when the first shot rang out. Wide, it was a miss. It shattered Olivia's wine glass and it exploded against the limestone wall. Glass and blood would later be found embedded in the plaster. Total chaos erupted. Marcus lunged. The second shot, 11:52 p.m., tore through his right shoulder. A clean shot, but it was deep, and blood sprayed across the imported rug like spilled ink. Rachel screamed and tackled Jamie. Yoga strength turned into primal fury is what that was, and they struggled near the fireplace. Rachel hit the mantel hard, blood on stone, a piece of hair left behind. And then, 11:58 p.m., the final shot. Rachel collapsed. One hand clutched her stomach and the other reached out toward Marcus, toward the man she loved, toward the choice she didn't get to make. And there was silence. The fire crackled. The rain tapped the windows. Jamie stood in shock, the gun hanging limp at his side. And Olivia stood by the window, untouched and watching. At 12:17 a.m., the police arrived. They found Rachel's body. They found Marcus holding her, blood soaking his shirt. They found Jamie catatonic by the fireplace, and they found Olivia, calm and silent and free. The investigation on this uncovered everything. Digital forensics, surveillance files, messages. Olivia kept it all neatly stored like exhibits in a gallery. She had been documenting them since college. Not because she wanted revenge, because she wanted freedom. Jamie got 20 years for second-degree murder. Marcus lost his license, of course, and Olivia testified and walked away. Rachel never got to walk away from anything. 1 year later, the cabin's been scrubbed clean and turned into a curiosity destination for true crime fans. The blood's gone, but the story is still fresh. 4 friends who thought they could control the fallout of betrayal. But betrayal has no brakes, and sometimes love doesn't lead to heartbreak, it leads to gunfire. You've been listening to Cheaters Anonymous, where secrets can't be kept forever, and lies unravel.